In a lot of Italian families, people who aren't your family, by blood, are your family just because they're around you. So I had more uncles who weren't my uncles by blood, but it was always Uncle Ginky, Uncle Bonesy, Uncle Mike, Uncle Tony, Uncle Polly, But they weren't your uncles, but because they were your father and your mother's friends, and they're around your life, your whole
They're like
time.
every day.
Every day. When I was younger in school, you always get that paper in like 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and it would say, tell us about yourself, tell us about your parents, mom, dad, address, occupation. But like 1 or 2 years, I said to the teachers, like, can I bring the paper home? I have to give it to my mom. And like, why do you gotta give it to your mom? I said, I gotta have her. I don't know what my dad does for a living. Like, I don't know what to put there. And they're like, well, and the one teacher, because they knew my dad, they're like, well, just put self-employed. I'm like, okay, so I put self-employed.
It still hits, I don't miss. I just go, like a go flow. And I'm almost known, and I told you so. When I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close to the Joe Smoke goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bad, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
Support for the On the Stacks podcast comes from Montage Planning Partners. Partnerships like this make our community a better place to live and work. That's why Montage Planning Partners is proud to support the important work of On the Stacks. When it comes to financial planning, most financial companies ask, what's your salary? At Montage Planning Partners, we ask, what's your story? We know building the right financial plan means looking at more than just money. That's why we start by asking the right questions, listening to what matters most to you, then guiding you every step of the way to help you live the life you want. Now and years from now. Plan your financial story with Montage Planning Partners with Northwestern Mutual, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Contact Montage Planning Partners today. Visit montageplanningpartners.com for further information and disclosures. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On the Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by Wilkes Consulting, a Ramsey preferred coaching firm. Are you drowning in debt? Is the weight of financial stress holding you back from living the life you were meant to live? Then it's time to break free and regain control of your financial future. Wilkes Consulting specializes in financial and debt consulting. Their team of 4 highly trained Ramsey Solutions advisors are ready to help you take charge of your money. Whether you're looking to get out of debt, pay off student loans, or simply need assistance on how to prepare to buy a home, Wilkes Consulting can help you fine-tune your budget and provide the resources and guidance you need to meet your goals. Don't let debt or the fear of finances control your life any longer. Head over to wilkopa.com and book a hassle-free, no-obligation call. Your first step towards financial freedom. Again, that's wilkopa.com, WILCOPA.com. Wilkes Consulting, making financial independence a reality. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On the Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game. What's up, podcast? It's Bill Corcoran Jr. here in the MPP studio. Russ Rinaldi, welcome to the On the Stacks podcast.
Thanks, Bill. really appreciate you having me. I'm really excited about today, and I'm glad you asked me to come down.
Yeah, this is great. It's also your birthday, so before we go any further, I gotta wish you happy birthday.
Thank you.
When we were trying to coordinate this, you're like, "Oh, that day's my birthday," and then you're like, you're like, "Hey, you know what? I'll come anyway." And I was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." I was like, "We'll have a party." Okay, I actually brought it. There's some cupcakes in there to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. I couldn't let you leave empty-handed.
I love sweets. I'm a sweet guy.
Well, I got a couple sweets for you. We'll share maybe after, but yeah, man, I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you.
And I know we connected obviously through Brian DiMattei. Shout out to Brian. You were on Brian's show.
Of mine.
Yeah,
love Brian.
Yeah, so I'm excited to infuse some Old Forge into my show here. To be honest, I know it sounds crazy, and you're probably gonna like walk out the door when I say this, but like I don't really know much about like Old Forge. Like I've never really like ventured much to Old Forge. I'm not sure why, but
not surprising. And I'm not saying that about you. I mean, it's a close-knit, quiet place. You're not the only person to tell me that.
Yeah, even though I'm born and raised in the area, it's just like for me, like as far as like, and I know Old Forge has like phenomenal pizza and everything, but it's like, to be honest, like I haven't really even explored much of it yet,
Well, you got time, and we're gonna be there, so you can buy whenever you're ready.
Oh, dude, I'm ready. Wise guys love to cook, right?
Yeah, that's my dad's.
Yeah, which is really cool, by the way. I mean, I love stories and recipes from my time with the mob. It's very if anyone hasn't read it, I mean, it's the stories and the things, and you were sharing some things before we started, and it's so fascinating, like you were saying about just documenting like stories, like with just family stuff and being able to pass the stuff down through generations. Like not many people like have that, and for you guys to be able to do that, it's awesome.
Well, the recipes in that book, like most of the places in Old Forge, when it comes to food, restaurants, family, the recipes in that book, like those are recipes from my great-grandma to my grandma to my father to us to people now that we're serving in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
My great-grandma was making those dishes, tweaking them here and there, maybe a little bit of this extra, a little bit of less of that, but mainly the same dishes, same ingredients, 120 years later, still being made
so
by
crazy.
The same family,
Yeah.
but like fourth, fifth generation now.
That's wild to
Right.
think about that.
It's great. I mean, and we've always, and the crazy part about it is, if my father was alive, my father never, his grandmother, his mother, him, even us, no recipes were ever written down on paper. And not only in our family, excuse me, in a lot of families, whether you were an Italian family cooking or whatever nationality family you're cooking, back then all your recipes were up here.
Oh my God,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So to put them down on paper like that, and then incorporate the stories that my dad did with them, it's a
phenomenal.
It's a smash hit. And the
It
people
is.
who, and I'm not saying just because it's my dad, but the people who read it, the people who've purchased it, the people who come into the restaurant, the people I talk, whether it's on phone, online, on the social media sites, in person, people really, they took a real good liking to it.
Yeah.
But who doesn't like food?
Oh
You know
my
what
God,
I mean?
yeah. Especially
And
Italian food.
Right. And
Yeah.
food's such a good way to bring people together.
It is. It is. It's one of those things, like, no matter what, like, it's kind of like I'll say, like, music is like another thing. Like,
Right.
it's like, who doesn't like music? I've said this a few other times in some other episodes, but, like, food and music, and maybe there's, like, one or two other things in life, but there's just, like, there's something about that when you're breaking bread with people, odds are there's probably also music on in the background, right? But, like, there's just something about food that just, when you're having a conversation and you're eating, you're having a lunch or a dinner with somebody, like, it's to be able to have like a connection with somebody, like that's like an ultimate connection, I feel like.
My father has a quote in that book, and I remember, I'm 47 today, like you mentioned, my birthday.
Yep.
I remember probably 4, 5, 6 years old, and my father was always cooking at the house. My mother was always cooking, whether it was for our family, inviting family over, friends over. My father has a quote in that book, and it stands true forever. Never underestimate the power of food. There's so many things throughout history that food has been a part of. Food's been a part of life, death, war, success. I mean, we could go on forever. There's always food involved. Sit down, have a meeting over food. Arguments started over food. Differences were settled over food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Peace was made over
yeah.
food. War was made over
all
food.
of it.
Like,
Everything.
there's so many things that you can incorporate food with. Like you said, even music, too.
Yeah.
But food is so powerful.
It brings people together.
brings people together. Food is so powerful that it's such a great part of history. It's a great part of family. It's just. I mean, food is just. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
And on the back of the book, it has, it says, a wise guy is, and I'll just say ... and it's got a big definition. It's kind of funny. I laugh every time I read it. It says he has a day job, most likely for tax purposes.
Well,
I love that.
In that line of work that my father was a part of, it was always self-employed, and I explained this. I might have explained this on Brian's podcast too, but I explained it to a lot of people. When I was younger in school, you always get that paper in like second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and it would say, "Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your parents, mom, dad, address, occupation." And I used to say to the teacher until 1 or 2 years, then I was like, "Oh, I got this." But like 1 or 2 years, I said to the teacher, I said, "Can I bring the paper home? I have to give it to my mom." And they're like, "Why do you got to give it to your mom?" I said, "I got to have her. I don't know what my dad does for a living. Like, I don't know what to put there." And they're like, "Well," and the one teacher, because they knew my dad, they're like, "Well, just put self-employed." I'm like, "Okay," so I put self-employed.
So what does your dad do? He's self-employed.
He's self-employed. Yeah. So the tax purposes, like you're saying, he was self-employed.
That's right. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. So what was that like growing up, like with a big Italian family?
Fantastic. I'll tell you what. I remember at my house, every day there was at least, between family and friends and my parents, our friends, my brother's friends, there had to be 40 people at my house every day regardless. If it was a slow day, there was 35 people. If it was a busy day, there was 70.
And probably a lot of food involved.
A lot of food, and obviously, a lot of wine, a lot of booze.
Oh, of course, yeah.
A lot of partying. In the summertime, because my father had a nice yard, he always took care of the pool. My father liked to swim. We always liked to be outdoors. He did too. And so did me and my brothers and my sisters. So we had like the nice pool, the nice yard, always cooking, always family over, always friends. In a lot of Italian families, people who aren't your family, by blood, are your family just because they're around you. So I had more uncles who weren't my uncles by blood, but it was always Uncle Ginky, Uncle Bonesy, Uncle Mike, Uncle Tony, Uncle Polly, But they weren't your uncles, but because they were your father and your mother's friends, and they were around your life, your whole time.
They're like every day.
Every day. Before you go to bed at night, we'd have like 10, 12 people still at the house. I'd walk over, I'd give my mom and dad a hug and kiss goodnight. My mother would say, "Make sure you go give Aunt Susie a hug and kiss goodnight." She wasn't my Aunt Susie, but she was my father's friend, Paul's wife, but she was Aunt Susie. So Uncle Polly, Aunt Susie, give them a hug and kiss goodnight. By blood, they're not, but by friendship, they're family.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like nowadays, there's a million different reasons, but I feel like, in America, we've lost a lot of that, and I think the Italian culture and like all of that, like it's, I think that still exists. It does still exist, like to a degree, but like unfortunately, I think a lot of that has gone away.
Well, I'm going to agree with you a lot on that, and even in my family, and I don't know what to put to it, what the reasoning is. I have a couple of reasons of my own, and I'm not trying to sound old, but back in the old days when my father was like 15, 16 years old, my son's age, let's say now. My son's going to be 16 in July. Back then, and obviously I wasn't around, but I heard a lot of the stories. Back then, the families, there was more time for the families to spend with each other. Usually the husband worked, the mother was home all day. It was usually a 9-to-5 job. So your father would go out to work, your mother was home with the family, your father come home, everyone sit down at the table, everyone was together. I think
probably
now,
every day, right?
Every day. Well, according to my father, yeah. And even like the other families back then. Every day. Now, and I think as time went on, now the mother and father are working, sometimes 2 jobs.
Right.
The kids are home with maybe a babysitter or a family member. Life today, I think, is so fast-paced for all of us. We're always rushing to get here, to get there, hurry up to work, hurry up home. Nobody works till 5 anymore. You got to work until 8. You got to work till 7.
Yeah.
In my line of work, and a lot of people in my line of work, you go to work sometimes 9 in the morning, get home at 11 at night. But I mean, not just in the restaurant, but there's a lot of businesses
Just any,
where people are
or even
working.
if you're sitting at home like me, like I'll be sitting at home, I'll be on the couch 7 o'clock sometimes, still wrapping up some
Right,
stuff.
you're still doing stuff,
Yeah.
or 10 o'clock at night before bed, maybe. You're on
Yeah,
your
especially when the
phone.
kids go to bed.
Right.
Then I actually kind of have to like sort of almost go back to work because like I don't want to say it's a distraction with the kids, but it's just I want to focus my time with the kids
Right.
before they go to bed. You know, like we have the bedtime routines and all that. And it's like then when the kids go to bed, then I can be like, okay, hey, I spent my time with the kids. Now gotta pop the computer open
Right,
and do a
kids
little bit
are
of
in
work.
bed, do a little work.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like that in the old days.
No.
I mean, obviously that technology wasn't, but
Sure.
just the way
But
of
yeah, there
life,
wasn't. Yeah, it was.
the job wasn't like that. You
Yeah.
left the job, you went home, you were with your wife and your kids,
Yeah.
and you did your thing. And same thing, they had routines like we have now.
Yeah.
But at 10 o'clock at night, they were probably in bed.
Yeah.
Then they were up at 6 in the morning. Everyone had breakfast together.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's
It's the connectivity. There's a constant like connectivity now to like everything.
right.
I
I
think
think it's discredited to the this life is just so fast anymore.
It is.
It's just everything is and everything is
Instantaneous.
everywhere. It's and everything, and not in a bad way, because right now
Yeah.
we're using technology, but the technology today, everything's in your face, and you send it out fast. You receive it
24/7.
quick.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we were just talking
Boom,
before
boom.
about the treadmill. Like we were talking
Right.
about treadmills. Now we're all going to get treadmill
Right.
ads.
The phone, like all the ads pop up on your phone. Like everything
You're just
is
bombarded.
boom,
It's
boom, boom.
it's
Right.
overload. It's overload.
I think that's what has a lot to do with it, and I think over the years we had to adapt that way because that's just the way life took us. Mm-hmm. I mean, now everybody does it. I mean, so I think there's still a lot of good time you can still spend with your family. I try and spend as much time with my kid as possible. I'm sure you try and do it.
100%.
And there's a lot of great people out there. I'm sure who try and do the same thing with their kids.
yeah.
I just feel hearing the stories from my father's era when he was 15 to my son's era now he's 15, it's completely different.
Yeah. What was that? Some of that like? So like some of those stories like your dad shared with you growing up. What was that? What was that like?
When he was a kid,
Yeah.
well, I mean, to speak about Old Forge, I mean, Old Forge back then, hearing about from my father's stories and my his brothers and my aunts, like their family, Old Forge hasn't changed much. I mean, and I'm just going to use Old Forge because I know a lot about it. Old Forge hasn't changed much as far as a lot of the dynamics are still the same. A lot of our I mean, obviously over the years, our Main Street changed, a little commercialized because with, like different businesses leaving and coming in. But I mean, when I remember talking with my father, and I spent a lot of time with my father when I was younger, a lot of the stories and a lot of the history. But Old Forge hasn't changed that much. It's always been basically, family oriented, a lot of tradition, and not only restaurants, pizza or restaurants, but a lot of hard workers, a lot of coal miners, a lot of
Really rich in history.
really rich in history. Yeah, it's definitely a part of the country that was a major industry for.
Yeah, it was integral.
Well,
yeah.
definitely. I mean,
It was everything actually back then.
especially back then.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of coal. Everything was run by it back then. A lot of coal businesses. We had a lot of coal breakers just in Old Forge. A lot in the whole region too around here.
Yeah.
Not just Old Forge. NEPA was a major coal mining.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it was a major in between for a lot of cities. It was a major in between for Philadelphia, a bigger city, even a bigger city, New York City. A lot of in between, a lot of traveling from here to Chicago. I mean, there was a lot of like hustle and bustling going on back here back then.
Yeah.
I mean, not just in Old Forge, in this area though.
Yeah.
A lot of history.
A lot, yeah, definitely a lot, and obviously, a lot of Italian history, of course, in Old
lot
Forge.
of Italian history.
And there's also the big argument about it being the pizza capital of the world. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I feel it is. It is. It's a self-proclaimed
I will
pizza
agree.
capital of the
I
world.
agree. Yeah.
And a lot of people think that it's the self-proclaimed pizza capital of the world because, Old Forge, they have the best pizza. They think they have the best pizza. Old Forge has more pizza places per capita. And we don't have as many now as we did in the old days because, like I said, people got older, families might have moved out of town. Maybe some passed away, passed it down, the guy got rid of
Right.
it. There's still a lot, though. But, I mean, Old Forge is the pizza capital of the world for that reason. Also, Old Forge pizza, it's unique. Like, we had Italian women back in 1920, 1930 who invented this style of pizza. I mean, I know Chicago deep dish is sort of similar. Ours isn't deep, but the shape. I know Sicilian is sort of similar, you know, but they cut a little different. You know, it's a little bit, their cheese is different, their sauce. But Old Forge itself, especially the red, the white pizza too, but the red pizza, I mean, that's just in Old Forge.
Yeah.
And these ladies, all Italian women, invented it back then.
They served at the coal miners, right?
They served at the coal miners. That's how. Well, they first started selling it or serving it in their house because it was easy and cheap, and it would feed big families. And back then, a lot of people didn't have money,
Right.
Or the majority of people didn't have money, so you had to eat what you had.
You had to stretch it. You had to stretch what.
Yeah. You ate what you had. It wasn't, Ma, could I have this for dinner? No,
It was you're getting what you get.
Ma, I don't want that. Well, then don't eat. But you ate.
Yeah.
Like, I remember my father telling me stories like, obviously there were some things, you know, my father came from a family of 7 children. So obviously there might have been one child who didn't want to eat this or that, but his mother would look at him, my grandma, he'd ate.
As soon as he got that look,
Once
right?
Once my grandfather, his father looked at him, he might eat his and tried to take some of his brothers because he wanted to show his all right, I'm eating, don't worry, you know. So, I mean, and that wasn't just in the Italian family. I think that was just
In general, too.
that was
different
just
time.
the persona back then. Right, a different time back then. It wasn't like, I want this, I don't want that. You're making 5. You made one thing. So I think that's how with the pizza. But then, like you know, you heard the stories before, and you heard the like the beginning of it, which is then they moved it into the speakeasies. Then they were giving it away to the coal miners. Then they decided to sell it in the front part of the restaurants. So pizza in Old Forge has such a big and a way back long history. I mean, it's just, it wouldn't be anything else if he didn't proclaim it the self-proclaimed pizza capital of the world. It just wouldn't.
Yeah.
And there's still places now who were in business for years, 60 years, 70 years. Mark and Angelo Janelle over at our Karen Janelle's. 2 of the best individuals in the world. Never mind Old Forge, in the world. But all the places in Old Forge, Pat Ravillo, another great guy, and Heather Ravillo. They now run his parents' place, which they had since 1967, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Our Karen Janelle's 1962. So, I mean, like, these places have been around for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that itself
That's a testament to, it really
stands
is.
the test of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they both have great products, just like all the places in Old Forge do.
One of the things I find that I'm fascinated by, I find so interesting is you know, Italian. I feel like Italian people. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. I feel like in Italians, like trying to. I'm just trying to like think back to like, man, like Italians just like they were scrappy and they did what they did what they had to do to provide for the family, and like they're true entrepreneurs. Like think about like all these things that you're just saying. Like when you think like what is an entrepreneur, it's like let's go back in history to, you know, and just think about, you know, these the Italian people. Like it's like, man, it's so deep. It's like in their blood.
Well, I remember my father telling me stories when his family came over here, when his mother came over with her brothers and fathers. Back then, Italian people were frowned upon. They weren't like respected much. They wouldn't get hired for the good jobs. My father always made a joke telling the story, but he was honest. He said, like, in this area, in NEPA, when the Italians came over, you couldn't get a job as a cop up in Scranton or in the area. They hired the Irishmen. The politicians were all Irishmen, you know, because it was like the Catholic Irishmen, they had the bigger jobs. And a lot of people, there was other nationalities who settled here. There's a lot of Russians who settled. There's a lot of Italians. There's a lot of the Irish. But he said when the Italians came over, they were frowned upon. So they couldn't get the job. So like you're saying,
They had to figure something else out.
They had to survive.
Yeah.
They had to figure a way out to do what they needed to do for their family. Most of them probably worked in the coal mines. But then they spread out a little bit and they started to open up, whether it was neighborhood stores, whether it was restaurants, you know, but they spread out. But like you said, my father said they would just do what they had to do to survive. to provide for their family.
Yeah. Yeah. And saying that, and you know, like besides just the food business, obviously like your dad was an entrepreneur in many aspects, like not just food.
No, well, he had a couple different things. I mean, my father went into the Army when 1964. He was a medic in the Army from 64 to 69, and he began his first business. He was a loan shark, and he needed some way to make extra money and send it home to my mom. And I think at the time my sister was the only one born. She was born in 1964, and that's when my father first went he went out. He was only in Texas though. He never left the country, but he was based in Texas. That's where his base was. And he was there until 69. Then he came back in 69, and that's when my brother Bobby was born. But in that time period, you're a medic in the Army in 1964. I'm not sure what the pay was, but I'm sure it wasn't
Great, yeah.
Right.
I wasn't great.
Right. So,
especially to raise a family.
Right. So my father has his wife home with his 1-year-old daughter, 2-year-old daughter over the years. Mm-hmm. So he's figuring like, I got to do something. So my dad always had a good mind for, if any type of business, but a way to make money. Mm-hmm. So he became a loan shark in Texas, in the Army, loaning money out to guys if they were going out on leave, if they wanted to buy stuff in commissary or wherever, commissary. It sounds like jail.
Like jail. Yeah.
It does.
I know. Yeah.
That came later on in life. But it did.
Love it. Yeah.
But in the mess hall, what I'm trying to say is,
exactly.
Money for whatever they
Yes.
want to.
Yep.
Probably mostly for leave when they were going out with their buddies on the weekend passes.
Exactly.
But he became a loan shark. Then when he came back, I mean, I could say it now because, God bless my father, he's passed away. My father became a bookie. He was a bookmaker in this area for 43 years until he passed away.
Yeah. So,
I mean, he did what he had to do. And, he, as crazy as it sounds, although you're running or operating that kind of business, you could still do an honest job at it.
Yeah.
You can still do an honest job at it.
Yeah.
Right.
I forget the name of the book, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the author that wrote the book, but there's a book and I read it. I love it. It's called What the Legitimate Businessman Can Learn from the Mob.
Well, my father always said you could learn a lot more from a criminal once you're in jail than from a criminal when you're out of jail. Mm. So in the same aspect like that, like they say if you go to prison, you could get an education. Yeah. Yeah.
So crazy, isn't it?
I've never been there. I don't want to go there. Yeah. But, my dad was there and, his friends were there. And obviously I know people who were there. But I mean, you could go in there.
Come out way smarter.
It's
wild to think about that.
Way smart. And I'm sure, like you just said, but I'm sure many, many men and probably women. Yeah. They came out and, they
said, hey, I just got like more than a 4-year college education. Yeah, right?
I was just watching this guy just recently too, and it's in a whole different aspect of business. I was watching this guy, we were just talking about the internet and social media. It's always all over the place. Scrolling through TikTok or Instagram Reels late at night. And this guy, he was just in prison. He was in prison for 12 years. He came out. He had $200 to his name. Then he started a business that he learned off of people. He just said he made $22 million last year. He came out with $200. He was in jail for 12 years. But now he turned his life around. He does like motivational speaking. He does fitness. I forget exactly what his business was, but he said he made $22 million last year.
I think we need to go to jail, Russ.
No, we don't.
We'll come out with 22 million, right? Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, it's really cool to think about that and to really talk about it because people think about that and you you think it's like, oh, he's a criminal and this and that. It's like, listen, man, just because somebody did something wrong, whatever they did, I don't care. There's so much to learn. There's still so much to learn from that. And these people, it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. There's just so much you can learn.
There's a lot you can learn. And you know, just to touch back on my father, but on other people too, not to mention any names, but I'll mention my father's name. I mean, my father was an intelligent guy to begin with. A lot of common sense, very logical person. You know, no barely any high school education, no college education.
Very street smart.
Extremely street smart. I mean, his whole life.
I think that means more than anything, in my opinion.
His whole life, he did everything off the streets, from the streets, learned most of it on his own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, going back to when he was a kid, his family had, his mother had the corner market, like we were saying earlier, in the front of the house. Then she had one of the speakeasies in Old Forge. Then her family opened up a restaurant. I was telling you before, a little before, his one uncle, they also owned a traveling carnival. I mean, they did what they had to do back then. They opened up different businesses, different entrepreneurships. But my father, he learned a lot of that and picked a lot of that up his whole life. He was always around his uncles. He was around his father, his mother a lot. So as he was growing up, they were always, like we said again, hardworking, go-getters, did what he had to do. My father, I mean, he used to look at me, and my father used to read books a lot. He used to do crossword puzzles a lot. My father was a book of knowledge, but never opened up a high school or a college book. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Learned everything on his own as he was growing up, after school, as he got into his teen years and his 20s and besides the Army for those 4 years. Then he came out, he was dishonorably discharged in 68, 69. That's when he began his way of life.
Self-employment.
Yeah, he began his self-employment.
His self-employment career.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, like it's really cool to like think about that, because like I said, there is just so much to learn, especially from the stories, you know. And I'm sure, obviously, you growing up, you've been around, you know, your family, and you've, again, same thing with you. You probably learned so much at such a young age. Like, can you remember back, like what's like, is there something that sticks out in your mind that like your dad taught you, or that you're like, man, like there was this one time my dad taught me this, whatever lesson it was, and you just never forgot it for the rest of your life?
Well, I mean, there was lots of them, but for instance, not a lesson, but again, going back to working, doing what you have to do, working, like my father used to own a, we used to call it a joint, but it was a social club. You know, guys would come, you know, you'd be playing cards with your friends, you know, coffees, food, stuff like that throughout the day. And I was in there as a kid, and I used to make sandwiches, serve them drinks. You know, you run across the street to the store, you pick up a pack of smokes for somebody. We would drive to the store, pick up an order at the store, a couple bags, boxes of food to bring back. My dad was always cooking for his friends, always cooking for, you know, whoever was gathered at the joint.
Yeah. So,
I mean, sitting over the years, and I was young. I was like 12 when I first started working there and like hanging out there with them, and that was fun. And that's where you hear a lot of the stories that I have now from him, from his friends, from guys who were hanging out there. There might even been guys there that I never even really met or talked with, but I was sitting off to the side, and you're listening.
And you're taking all that, you're taking all those stories and all that information.
Yeah, I mean, those guys. I mean, most of the stories are truth. I'm sure there's definitely some exaggeration to them. I mean, you know, that's how people tell the story. You know,
right?
What I mean?
Yeah, it's gotta have a little entertainment edge, right?
You always got to add a little.
And Italians like to tell stories,
right? Yeah,
right?
you gotta add,
yeah.
My father used to say you gotta add a little oomph to it.
I like that.
A little oomph to it.
a little oomph. Yeah, nothing wrong with adding a little oomph. You know.
Right. Well,
just sprinkle a little of that in. That's the secret sauce.
That always makes it a little more.
Yeah.
A little more exciting, a little more intriguing.
Yeah. Did you ever, like, at a young age, like, did you like, you know, take to food and cooking and things like that as a young kid?
Well, when I was younger, I mean, always around my dad, my mom too, another great cook. I mean, growing up in my house, somebody was always cooking, and then I remember my one brother's 8 years old, and my other brother's only 2. But I remember even with my parents cooking, and then I remember seeing my one older brother cooking with my parents, and then my middle brother, then me. we were always around food. My mom's mom, my dad's parents. I never met my grandfather, his father. I met his mom, which was another fantastic cook. Her family had the restaurant. She had the store. But I was 6 when she passed away. My mom's mom, another great cook. She was Russian, though. She was Slovakian. But a fantastic, and she could make Italian food. But she had a 100% Italian husband. So back then, and he came from 16 kids. So
holy shit.
Yeah, he was one of 16. I think he was the second or third youngest.
Wow.
Yeah, my Uncle Benny on that side he would be the youngest, but that was one of 16.
Wow.
So she had to learn how to cook Italian
That's
food.
a lot of cooking.
And I'll be honest with you, to this day, my father, he's up there in heaven. I don't want him getting mad at me. Her lasagna, a Slovakian woman, my grandma Sue, her lasagna to this day, best lasagna I've ever ate in my life. When I talk about it, I can taste it right now.
I'm getting the chills.
Oh, it's fantastic. And my dad made a great lasagna. My mother makes a great lasagna. And my mom to this day, 82 years old, she still cooks a lot too. Not as much, obviously, she did when she was younger.
Yeah.
My grandma cooked up until she was 95.
Oh my God.
95 years old, and she lived by herself.
Wow.
My grandfather passed away in 1987 from cancer. He was 7 years old. She was a year younger than him. She was 69. She lived into 2014. She almost made it to 97. She passed away 2 months before her 97th birthday.
Wow.
And she was in the nursing home for the last 9 months of her life. But up until then, till 95, 96 is when she slowed down. 95, she'd be at her house taking care of herself, cooking 3 meals a day. She slept 8 hours a day.
All Italians, I feel like, are like that. And I don't know what it is. I feel like Italian people live longer than everybody else. Right? Am I right? And they're able to still do that. Like at that age. And I see it all the time.
I want to say this. And again, growing up in Old Forge and seeing my friends' grandparents, even them, not just my grandparents, my friends' grandparents, and you're right, Italians, they were all like that.
Yeah.
I remember going over my friend's house. I was 12. His mom's there, maybe her mother, maybe her grandfather. And there's her mother. When I'm 12, there's her mother at 78 years old cooking for 10, 12, 15 people.
Yeah, and that's not easy. Cooking for like
So-
4 is hard.
I know some people right now who can't cook for one.
Yeah, God love them, right?
but right. But, well, now it's,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. But anyways, even in other families, just, especially, and the Italian women, though.
Yeah.
They were just, they were bulls, nonstop. And they, like I said, my grandmother, but I know other women too, who just went right into the end and up there in age.
Yeah.
75, 85, 95, and still cooking for themselves or for people. My grandmother, I don't have the exact date. My grandmother, during a holiday, would have 20, 25 of us over. She had a little, half a double that she lived in her whole life with my grandfather. On the other side was one of my grandfather's brother. Actually, the half a double had 4 families in it. They used to have just 3 rooms downstairs, 3 rooms upstairs, 3 and 3. So 4 families lived in 3 rooms each. Then they took the left side as they got older and they moved out. And then his brother stayed on the right side. But they had 3 little rooms downstairs. And I remember when I was growing up, we'd help her bring the tables up from the basement, put the folding chairs up. My grandma was 80 years old, cooking for 25 people.
Let's go crazy.
And she wouldn't want you to come into the kitchen, no help.
Yeah.
Don't clean nothing.
Sit down and eat. Sit down and eat. Sit down.
Put the dishes there. I'll get them.
Yeah.
And then after a while, when she got a little bit older, my mother would be like, Ma, let us help you. My mother would go in. My sister would go in. One of her sisters. But up until a certain point, my grandma would cook by herself for 25 people, clean it all up. I mean, we would help her move the tables and chairs up and down. You know,
but she probably did 90% of the work.
90%.
It's great. It's so true. And I say it too, like I saw on my mom's side of the family, you know, obviously you hear my last name, it's obviously Irish, right? But my mom's side of the family is all Italian. So that's the defined side of my family. And, you know, my mom still to this day, same thing. She cooks. Like she you know, she's still cooking every day. She's like the best cook, by the way. She watches every episode, so shout out to my mom. I love you. She's the best. Sue's gonna love you, by the way. I'm telling you, she's gonna be obsessed with this episode. But same thing, like I remember like as a kid growing up being, with all of our cousins at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother was the same way. It was just, you walked in the door, there was always a pot on the stove. You walked in, as soon as you open the door, you smell what she's cooking. You could probably smell it out in the driveway, and you just knew. As soon as we got to my grandmother's house, we walked in. The first thing, what do you guys want to eat? What can I get you to eat? It's like, and she called everything munchies. That's what she called, like chips and stuff. She'd open the cabinets. She'd be like, here, get some munchies. Get some munchies. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Always nonstop. Even when you're full, it's like, what else can I get you? And she was just going, and did that till probably almost basically till she passed away, my grandmother. And and my mom's the same way. Like, she's always cooking. Every time I go over her house, I walk in the door. Doesn't matter. I feel like it doesn't matter what time it is. I walk in, my mom's cooking something, and she's not even cooking for like really many people. Like she's really not. It might be herself, and sometimes she'll give me some stuff. But man, like I just there's just something about like that Italian side of my family that I always just loved. Like the family gatherings, like the holidays, just getting together, and the food. It's just like there's something about it. It's like so nostalgic, and man, it just feels like home.
I love it. I'll tell you, my sister, she's big with, and I am too. My sister's big with photos, taking pictures, of the family, whether we're at the house or if we were at the restaurant or if we're on vacation somewhere, and I'm a big picture guy too. But it just popped up in one of my memories, when you're on Facebook, I'm scrolling through my memories. And my sister, and she just posted it late, but I want to say it was Christmas dinner. It was at my mother's house maybe a year or two ago. There might have been about 12 of us there. And my mom, her too. My mother, I don't know how my mother cooked and put up with and handled all the people she did.
I don't know how any of our moms do that, right?
Between my father, his friends, my brother Bobby, his friends, my brother Ricky's friends, me. I mean, my mother had to deal with 100 people, 50 to 100 people.
Had to keep everybody in line.
And everybody eating and yelling and partying and laughing and fighting. But getting back to the photo, like you said about family, Italian gangs. My sister, I remember, you can't see her in the photo, but she's up on the chair behind us, and she's like this. Yeah. And I remember seeing her take the photo because she took a bunch of them, and she's like trying to get the perfect angle. And she gets this black and white. Well, she gets this photo, and she makes it black and white. And there's just food all over the place. There's pasta, there's meatballs, there's fra diavolo, there's bread, there's clams, there's seafood, there's lasagna. There's all the Italian food, and then all of us are on the table. But everybody, she gets a picture, and everybody's like digging in, eating. And it was like a great shot. And like you just said, like Italians, family gathering. There's nothing like it. Like that photo, like when you just said those like couple words in that 2 sentences, that photo's like that.
It's like
that's exactly what
that visual memory. Oh my God.
And it popped up 2 days in my 2 days in my memories. And I think it was from a Christmas dinner. So obviously Christmas isn't in June.
Of course, yeah.
But she must have posted it a couple years ago during this time. And it popped up. It's a great photo, and everyone's just like devouring food.
Yeah.
There's just food all over the table.
Always.
And she made it black and white. It looks like sort of like nice and like, like antique looking. It was neat.
That's cool.
Like older style.
Yeah.
It was
that's
great.
Really cool. Yeah. So you're named, you said you're named after Russell Buffalino, right?
Yeah.
What can you give me a little background of that?
Sure.
Everybody knows knows Uncle Russell Buffalino, right?
Everybody does. Great guy too, by the way. Great family. 1976, my mom gets pregnant with me. I was born June 19th, 1977. Reference on my birthday again. Happy birthday.
Love it.
Well, back then in November of 1976, biggest movie of the year, Rocky won. My father.
Great movie.
My father, big Italian guy. Gene, my mom's name. We're going to name Russell Rocky. Now she's like 2 months into her pregnancy. It's December. Rocky's out for a month. Biggest movie so far, and it ended up becoming one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yeah.
So he's like, we're gonna name Russ. We're gonna name our baby Rocky. My mother looked at him and said, he is not gonna be a Rocky. He's not gonna be a Rocco. Rockies are tough. Roccos are like, mean, and they're like pouty, and that's not gonna be my baby
is not going to be that. Yeah.
Not going to be that. He's going to be a nice boy. He's going to be soft and gentle and, everything a mother wants their son to be.
Yeah, of course.
And, well, what would you like to name him? She said, well, let's name him Randy, she said. And my father looked at her, and no offense to anybody named Randy. My father looked and said, he's definitely not going to be a Randy.
You do not look like a Randy, by the way, so thank God.
She goes, he's definitely not going to be a Randy. So then my mother goes, well, how about if we name him Ryan? And I'll get to the R's, why they keep picking R's. He said, well, Ryan's not a bad name. He said, no, he's not going to be a Ryan either. He said, I don't like that. And she said, well, we got to keep it in the R's. So what do you want to name him? And he's like, well, I told you I want to name him Rocky. She said, he's not Rocky. So my mother says, why don't we name him Russ? And my father said, it's a great name. She said, you're good friends. We're good friends with Russell Buffalino. He was probably back then, I don't even know whether the Russes were around. And Russ isn't a pretty popular name.
No.
I mean, I only know 3 other Russes.
I think I only know I only know a few.
Well, me, Russ Rinaldi. Mm-hmm. There's a guy from Old Forge called Russ Gilio. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God, I just forgot his name. He's going to be so mad at me. I'm not friends with him.
It's all right. Sometimes it's good to leave last names out, right? We don't say last names.
Russ D'Elia.
Okay, yeah.
And he's named after Billy, too.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, Billy's his father. He's named after Russ Buffalino, too.
Yep.
And so anyways, he said, that's a great idea. Let's name him Russ. I'm happy with that. My mother was happy with that. My mother said, Russ is an in-between name. Could be tough if you want him to be. Could be soft because I want him to be. So we can.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So that's how my name became about. But getting back to the R's.
Yeah, what's the R's?
Well, everybody in my family is RJR. That's how my parents named everybody. So my sisters, Robin, Jean Marie Rinaldi. Jean's my mother's name. Mm-hmm. My brother, Robert, John Rinaldi, Ricky's, Richard, Joseph Rinaldi, I'm Russell, James Rinaldi. Mm-hmm. And my son is RJR. So my father kept everybody RJR. So I had to have an R name.
Yeah.
And my son's RJR too. And then my brother Bobby, which is Robert, his son is RJR. He's actually the third. Wow. Yeah, so everybody, including, and even my brother Ricky's 2 daughters are RJR. Yeah.
That's cool.
The whole family, everybody in our family from my father down is RJR.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's consistency.
Well, that's how my father did it, and then I guess that's just how we kept it going.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's why my name, number one, had to become and begin with an R. Mm-hmm. But that's where the R came from.
No one broke that chain yet, did they?
No.
What if they do?
Well,
forget about it.
I don't think we're going to let them.
we're not gonna let. I like that.
I think we'd have to, if somebody decided to break, we'd have to have a sit down and discuss it.
I like that. Yeah, it's only right.
And we would talk about it over food.
Food. I was just gonna say, you're gonna be sitting at a table like this. Right. There's gonna be a lot of food.
A lot of discussion on why.
And then you'll come to a nice mutual agreement.
And we'll pick an R name.
There we go.
With a
RJR.
With a J initial.
That's great.
J middle initial.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's so interesting, I love just hearing like the stories from, Italian families that, have like this rich history. Cause like I said, like nowadays, like the family dynamic is just so different, going back to what you were saying earlier, like everything is just so fast paced, and it is. And we all live it. We both live it. You know what I mean? But,
I live it too.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, like with technology and everything else and all that. But, it's fascinating to me, like how much has changed in I'll say in like such a short amount of time, because like technology technology has accelerated significantly in the last, I don't know, I'm going back like 10-15 years. It's like a totally different world from 15 years ago. Like 15 years ago, like social media like just started to exist. It's crazy to think about.
Time and technology is waiting for nobody.
That's right.
Like you said, and like we said earlier, it's just everything is just so fast-paced anymore. Everything, and like you said, it's a blessing and a curse. Everything is just in your face.
All the time. All the time, yeah.
And it's probably most of our doing, because we have the power to pick our phone up, put it down. Mm-hmm. We have the power to look on our computer screen and not. Mm-hmm. But it's just that it pulls you in. But everything's out there.
Yeah.
And everything is on these little computers that we all have, and they're attached to us. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm guilty of it more than anybody. I mean, my phone is not next to me for a second out of the day.
Right. And I mean, you said, you're probably going to get a couple phone calls. I mean, it is your birthday, so,
it's going off.
It's fair. Yeah, I see.
It's been going off.
You have 2,000 notifications.
It's been going off.
So, so by the way, like, Russ might get a couple phone calls and he's going to answer it. So we hope he gets a couple birthday wishes while we're
Well, we have a
recording.
lot of them, but I'm only answering two.
That's right. That's right. Your
my son and my mother, if she calls. Those are the only two I'm going to answer.
Nice.
Just to make sure. Well, number one, I want to talk to him on my birthday, but just make sure everything's okay too.
I love that. Yeah. There's just something different about it. There's just something different. I think, like I said, just going back to the whole Italian upbringing, again, I'm just like thinking back to like my childhood and just being around with like all my cousins and my grandparents and stuff.
How many family members do you have? Like, you have brothers, sisters?
So I have a sister, I have a stepbrother and a stepsister, but they're on the other side of the family. But so on my side, I have a sister, and then so all of my cousins were all like pretty close in age. So my mom had a sister and two brothers, and then it's funny. I was in my home office actually just yesterday, which is ironic. We're talking about this because I have a picture in my office at home, and it's me and all my cousins and my grandparents. Like none of the aunts and the uncles, right? It's just the cousins. And my grandparents just like sitting in the middle, and we're all like flipping the camera off. And if any of my cousins are watching, they're gonna laugh their ass off because we all know what that picture is. Every one of us is like doing this, right? But yeah, I'm trying to think how many of us. So it was me, my sister. Let me think. 1, 2. On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn Board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn Board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn.
We drive the same roads you drive. We face the same danger you face. When you're involved in a car or a truck crash, it's personal because we live here and raise our families here. We're invested here.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. This episode is brought to you by Loop Internet. Are you tired of buffering, lagging, and slow internet speeds? Look no further. Introducing Loop Internet, Northeastern Pennsylvania's fastest and most reliable internet service provider. With Loop Internet, you can stream, game, and work from home seamlessly. Say goodbye to interruptions and hello to lightning-fast connections. Loop Internet offers both residential and business fiber. Fast-track the future with their 10-gigabyte fiber and join the Loop Internet family today. Visit Loop Internet online at loopinternet.com or call 1-888-808-5667. Again, that's 1-888-808-5667. 5667 or visit them online at loopinternet.com. Loop Internet, where speed meets reliability. And now we're back on the stacks. There's like I don't know, like 10 of us or something. I don't know. I'm trying to add up, but it was so cool because we're all like, obviously, we're all pretty close in age,
right?
So like we all grew up together, and then like we were all like best friends.
So and how old are you?
I'm 35.
Oh, well, I mean, you're young, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not old. That's young.
Yeah.
But although you're 35 at a younger age, you still have, but also had that feeling and that togetherness of family, whether it's stepbrothers, stepsisters,
Yep.
blood sister, blood brothers, your
Yeah.
cousins, your aunts, your uncles.
Yeah. You still have those big family gatherings.
You still have those. You've had them when you were a child,
Yep.
and you still have them now.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, you know about it, and there's a whole different dynamic to it. I think when it is, I mean, not just to speak about Italians and. I mean, I think family in general is like that, but
Agreed.
But I think I do think the Italians take it to a different level.
They do. They do. And I don't know what it was, but as a kid, like I've just always gravitated more to like that side. I don't know what it was. I mean, you probably know, you know what I mean? Because I'm just talking about the feeling. I can't really describe it, but there was just something about it. I know all my cousins, we would all agree too. Come like the holidays, like that was our favorite thing. Especially, the holidays more so than just regular stuff, right?
Right.
But the holidays, man, like gathering at because we always went to my grandparents' house. That was what that's what we all did, and just like we loved it.
My father used to tell me when we were younger, and I just said this to a guy about 2 weeks ago, but I say it often. I probably say it often throughout every year of my life, every couple months when you go places. If you're not in Old Forge, you go out of town, you go on vacation, you meet somebody. My father always said, one Italian could meet another Italian that day, not know him for a second. You feel after you get talking for a few minutes, you feel like you know him for your life.
Yeah, it's like an instant connection.
Right. Everywhere I go.
I felt like that about you. We didn't even meet ever even in person till today. We just know each other from social media and afar,
Right, but that's what my father said. He said, you could go as an Italian, meet another Italian. You don't know them.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Right. You talk to them for a couple minutes, you're like family.
Mm-hmm.
You talk forever, you click, you tell the same stories. Like you just said, you talk about whether it's food, family, gathering, big families, always together, work and this, that.
And the loyalty too.
Right.
That to me is like, there's I'm sorry to anybody else out there, but there's just something about like loyalty and sticking with your family and doing that and doing the right thing and just being there for your family no matter what. Like nobody does it better than Italians.
No, and family's important. Family's important.
It's the most important thing.
Family's important, and it's important for a lot of things. It's important in life. It's important in business. It's important in love. I mean, you really, when you come from a good family, and you have a strong bond. And you have, a lot of care, a lot of compassion, a lot of concern for each other. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could that goes a long way.
It does,
and it could go forever, and it could
generations. I mean, look at
you took the words
dude,
right
generations,
right out of my mouth.
Generations, man.
Generations after generations.
Yeah, we're telling these stories right now, and it's like like they're gonna keep going, and like that's like what's so fascinating about it. It's just like, the legacy just keeps carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. Like, and obviously it's up to you to be able to, infuse all that with your family and still do all that stuff. But like we do, like you do it, I do it. Like there's just something different about it.
Just a quick little story about something like that. Now, like I said, my son's going to be 16. I remember my son when he was 4, 5, 6 years old. He was the same way than he is now, just like about this. Now, my mother spends, and I obviously spent a lot of time with my kid from when he was born until now. And he was always around his nana and, always, helping her. And she's always cooking for him and playing with him, helping me raise him, all kind of things, spending time like a grandmother would with her grandchild. Mm-hmm. And my son, because I would always call, check on my mom, make sure she's okay, or she'd call me, you need anything, this, that. I remember my son, he'd be like 6 years old out of the blue. He'd be like, me and him be talking, and he'd be like, Dad, how's Nana doing? She good? Does she need anything? Like a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, who does that?
Right. Like a 6-year-old kid. Like
he was raised right.
Right. Like me and him were talking about like football practice the next day or something. Mm-hmm. God forbid, Like there has been times. Now my mother had her knees done over the years. She's older, a little bit in age. She has a bad back. She fell once or twice. She didn't get hurt, but she fell once or twice. He knew. He would call me up like 2-3 days after that. And then when he got older, he has his own phone. Now he could call her himself. But I'm saying 6, 7, 8 years old, no phone. But he'd be like, Dad, how's Nana doing? Is she feeling better? She fell the other day. Yeah, she's good. She's good, Russ. Well, then I take him over to see her. If he was with me, we'd call her, and he'd want to talk to her. What I'm saying is, I mean, he's a great kid. I'm not just saying because he's my son. But he is. He has that caring. He has that compassion. And obviously, you know, not to say anything about, you know, up talk me or my ex-wife, but we did raise him well, and me and her separated, but she's a great mom, and she did a great job with him. I'm doing a great job with him. You know, we're doing a great job together. Co-parenting.
Yeah, and that's great. And by the way, I highly respect that, you know, like you have that. You said like, hey, she's a great mom, you know, because there's a lot of people that be like, oh, you know, F her, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's cool, man. That's great that you still have that.
Yeah, no, I can never talk bad about his mom. You know what I mean? She's always been a good woman. She's always been a good mother. And it's a lot of credit why my kid is the way he is today. And then the credit also, like I'll say it about me too. He grew up with separate houses and separate parents.
Right.
But he grew up, we kept it equally, you know, and we raised him the same. You know, we mentored him the same from 2 different households.
Yeah, that's probably very difficult. I mean, for people nowadays, anyway.
Yeah, no, it wasn't for us though. I'll be honest with you.
But which is good. I
mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously everyone has their
challenges.
Right, yeah. Know, I mean, but you know, we got over them, we got through them, we got past them. But I believe
over food, right?
Over food.
If there was a problem, we'll just sit down and talk about it.
And over drinks for me, but that was a long time ago. But I feel like that's why he is the way he is today.
For sure.
And I think he'll continue to be. And I'm sure there's a lot of great parents I said out there, not just us, you know, or co-parents, but and I know a lot of great people out there and children who are the same way. So I'm not just saying it about my kid, but that comes from a good upbringing. That comes from good, you know, family value, good togetherness, you know, good, you know, like you said, loyalty, you know, good like bonds sticking together.
Yeah, because that's like rare today. It's a rare breed. Like you really are. Like having these types of like morals and everything, like and all this stuff with family, like it's a rare breed nowadays.
Well, going back to the beginning of the conversation, I agree with you. It is rare because families can't spend that much time together like they used to be able to.
Right.
And
everyone's working. Everyone's busy.
They used to have everyone had breakfast together, the whole family breakfast, and then the kids went off to school, the husband went off to work. If there was kids who weren't in school, the mother didn't work, so she stayed home, took care of the children. Then the father came home, everyone had dinner. Then everyone went to bed at the same. Like I remember my father telling me back then, you went to bed. Like everybody went to bed
at the same
go to bed. Everybody went to bed at the same time.
Wow, we were going back downstairs. It was wow.
Go upstairs like 9 o'clock. Go upstairs.
Everyone lights out. Yeah,
that's it. You know, if I come in your room, you know. But and my father, like I said, grew up with 7 children, 7 siblings. So probably 3 or 4 of them were in the same room. You know, sleeping on the beds or however cots or whatever they had. You know, and you were in bed. That was it. Boom, bed. I mean, I know we don't do that nowadays. Sure. But, you know, I think the whole systematics of it back then, you know, families just had more time to be family and be together. Yeah. And people want to do that today.
They do.
And there's a lot of good families. You know, I know a lot of good parents, a lot of good children, just like I said. But even me, I try and be the best father I could every day of my life. I try and spend as much time with my kid as I could. But, you know, I have to work, you know. But any free time I have, I'm with him. I'm sure you're the same way with your children.
Yep.
But people we don't have the time that they had back then.
Right.
And if you say, well, you got to make it, because then you hear people, well, you got to make it. Well, if you make it, well, then you can't work.
Right. You're sacrificing something else.
Right. Now, I will never work too much and lose time with him.
Yeah, I agree on that.
I
agree on that.
That'll be the end of it. I'll never do that.
No way.
No way.
Nope.
I mean, I will make sure that I'm there for my son. I want to spend time with him. I want to be with him. I want to do things with him. I want to hang out with him. I want to go places. I want to go to
the experiences, man.
Right. I want to do all that.
You want to give him the experiences,
right.
Like, because you can't get that time back.
No, you can't. That's super important. That's super important. And like I said, back in the old days, and you hear it a lot, and I'm guilty of it. Boy, I wish I was born back then. I wish I was born in my father's era, my mother's era. Grew up in the 50s. I wish I was there. And you know what? I do. You know what I mean? I mean, not to say like, oh, I don't like it here and I don't want to be here now. Like, I love it here and I love where I'm at and I love, you know, who I am and I love who my family is. I love my son. I love all that. But to say like, oh, I like to go back to then, because back then it just seems like, not were times simpler.
Yeah.
It just seems like they were just more like, you know, you were together more back then.
Yeah, it was way more togetherness.
Yeah, way more.
100%. My stepdad Jim, he's from Newark, and his family. It's crazy, you know, just talk about Italian families. Like he's 100% Italian, right? And the house that they have in Newark, I don't even know how long they've owned it, but like basically since the beginning of time, pretty much, right? And the whole family, they all lived in there. It's a 3-story in Newark.
Through generations.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
And like they still live. Like his mom, like, God love her. I forget how old she is. She's probably like close to 100, pretty close.
Wow.
You know, like the you know, her siblings, like they all lived there. Like, and it was a 3-story house, and like I can picture going there like as a kid, and it's like that shit doesn't exist anymore.
No.
You know, and it's like, but it's so cool. Like they still have it. They still have that house, and there's still multiple family members that live in that house.
Like you'll find it, but it's very rare.
Oh, very rare.
Right.
Very rare.
Especially now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely very rare. Back in the old days, that's how it was. Family went to the house, you know, family through generation lived here, lived there, but the house was always in the family.
Always.
Right.
Yeah.
Always.
And again, multiple people live in, you know, cousins, aunts, uncles, like the grandparents, everything from like grandparents on down.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to like think about that, you know?
It is. And that goes back to, you know, back then people didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
You had to make do with what you had. You know, you had to, you know, if that's how it had to be, you know, you had to live in the same house with the same, like I said, my mother grew up in her house for the first, I think, not exactly, but like the first 7-8 years of her life, from when she was born to 7, 4 families each lived in 3 rooms each, 3 on one side on the floor. On the first floor, 3 on the top, 3 and 3. That's all they had was 3 rooms. And then right next door, my grandfather's sister lived there. They had it was a big house, but 3 or 4 families, 2 sisters and 2 brothers lived in that house, and 4 brothers lived in this house. That's just how it was.
Yeah.
And then a little bit down the road where their homestead was, the rest of the brothers lived. But like I said, my great grandmother Vincentina, she had 16 kids.
God love her.
A lot of kids. Yeah. And it's probably, to be honest with you, my Uncle Benny was the baby, and my grandfather's oldest brother Dominic, which was named after his father, which was my great-grandfather Dominic, he was probably only 23 to 24 years apart. So when you have 16 kids in 23 years, it's a lot of kids in 23 years.
Man.
You know what I mean?
I can't even, it's like, that's hard to even fathom.
It's a kid every year in like 2 months.
It's impressive.
Right.
That's some serious work.
Right. Well, they had a lot of time back then.
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah.
That's going back to probably early 1900s.
Wow.
Because my grandfather was the fourth, well, actually 1800s. My
Holy
grandfather
shit.
was the third or fourth youngest, and he was born in 1917.
Wow.
So his oldest brother was probably born in like
late 18. Yeah.
like about 1896.
Wow.
Maybe 1897.
Yeah, but
around
still,
there. Right.
wow. Holy shit.
It's a lot of kids to have in 23, 24 years.
Can't even imagine.
You should have saw.
2's enough, man.
My great grandma Vincentina, she was about 4 feet 10 inches. There's one photo of her. My grandfather was tall. I don't know 100% Italian. I don't know how he got to be like 6 foot tall, but she was 4 feet 10 inches. She had forearms on her like footballs. You had to see them, and she's in the photo. It's him and her. That's it. You know, that black and white photo. She had probably a cooking apron on.
Probably,
her,
yeah.
black dress.
Yep.
And she's just standing there.
Real stout.
That was the smile. You know, it was just like,
Yeah. Nobody messed with her.
no, she was talk about running.
She was the boss.
Talk about running the house.
Yeah.
Like I heard the stories from my grandfather, and that was like,
It's like, ooh.
and she wasn't the only one. That's how it was back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Italian mom, the Italian grandma, you know, the old lady. She was the boss.
She was feared.
She was the
Right?
boss. Right.
Yeah.
16 kids. I think my grandfather, out of the 16,
Tough as nails.
I'd have to count to be exact, but there was 12 boys, 4 girls. The 12 boys together didn't stand a chance against her. She'd take them all on and it would be over with. That's just how she was.
Yeah.
And probably for most of the women
For sure.
who followed them back then, they were tough.
Yeah.
They were tough.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. So how's the restaurant biz?
Good. I mean,
Tough.
well,
right?
yeah, it is tough. I mean,
Tougher nowadays.
it's tough, but it's like anything in general.
Sure.
I mean, any business you have,
Everybody has their hard.
right. Yeah, I mean, you got your ups and downs, but any business you have, no matter what it is, you got to work at it. You got to put your time in, you got to be passionate about it. I mean, in my business too, you got to rely on a lot of people too. I have a good amount of people who work for me. I have a great staff though. I mean,
That's like the most important part.
very important. And I've said it to people in general. I said it through conversation, but and my staff knows too. Like our family takes care of our staff very well. Our staff take care of us very well because it's
the right way to do it.
Right, you have to do it that way. I mean, everybody's working for the same goal. So if you work together at it, and over the years, you learn to change this, upgrade that. Let's not do this. Let's do that. Let's try this. Well, maybe not try that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's any business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously, the restaurant business in general is probably one of the harder businesses out there because there's so many different things you have to keep an eye on. There's so many different angles you have to watch. With prices, increases,
Constant.
Right. You got food. You don't want to waste it. You have, you got liquor sales. You got alcohol. You got beer sales. I mean, there's
a lot of moving parts.
A lot of factors. A lot of factors involved.
Yeah.
Right.
What's your favorite dish?
Mine?
Yeah.
At my place or in general?
Both. What? In general and at your place.
Well, my favorite dish was always linguine with white clam sauce. That was always my favorite dish. And everyone in my family made it, but I'm going to go back to like my grandma, my father, my mom. I'm going to say probably my mother's was my favorite.
Okay.
Growing up as a kid, and I would ask her to make it for me a lot. This is when I was younger. I'd be asking her to make it for me. And, back then, like we said earlier, no, you eat what you get. Well, my mother would make it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. I love you for taking such good care of me.
Yeah.
But she would make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I used to love that. But then again, there's dishes that I grew up with, like my grandma. My favorite dish my grandma made, I told you, the lasagna. My father could take cardboard and make it taste good. But it's fra diavolo.
Ooh, I love a good fra diavolo.
So it depends on who my who was making in my family.
Yeah.
But everybody made everything good.
Yep.
But
there's a certain there's certain dishes
Right,
that just they bring back that memory of just family.
right, like I said earlier, when I think about food in general, I remember where I was, who I was with, what I was doing.
100%.
Everything.
Every time.
But when I talk about like my family making stuff, like I could go back to my grandmother making that lasagna and me sitting at her table. She had the old tablecloth down.
Oh my God, yeah.
She had a piece of plastic underneath it.
They all did. Right. I'm like, wait a second. This sounds like my grandma.
Right. Sitting in her kitchen on the old wooden chair, used to creak.
Yep.
The chair was 100 years old.
At least.
She had the old tin cabinets, like she had the old oven.
Yeah.
I was just telling my son the other day because we were talking about reheating pizza. And I said, Russ, do you and Mom, because he lives with his mom and her fiance. I said, do you and Mom and Eddie have an air fryer? He said, yeah. He said, put the pizza back in it. And because we were talking about my grandma had this little toaster oven. That was the air fryer of the 70s
Back then,
and 80s,
yeah.
right? Because my grandma, there's no way, like when you reheated food, and there wasn't much reheating, it was all fresh and you ate. But if she made some, then you stepped over and like, Grandma, I'm hungry. Well, I'll reheat you this. My grandma would go over to the little toaster oven and reheat it.
My
you know
God.
what I mean?
Yeah. We did the same thing.
But
the same thing growing up.
Right.
Yeah.
But I could sit there and I could remember and I could smell her house. I could see my grandma cooking.
Yeah.
I could taste that lasagna. I remember going into the parlor with her. My grandma was a football fan, massive football fan. She loved Penn State. No, my uncle.
So did my grandparents.
Well, my
So weird,
grandfather went to Penn State, and my uncle went to Penn State.
Okay.
But she was a big football fan.
Yeah.
So then, if it was Sundays or Saturdays, we'd be watching football. She watched NFL too, but that was like, here she is, 7 years old. She just made dinner for 10, 12, 13, 15 people. Mm-hmm. She cleaned everything up. She's in the parlor now watching football with us.
Yeah.
I can remember so much stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's so great.
It
revolves around food.
Always. Yeah. And by the way, you can't reheat. Anyone, if you reheat pizza in the microwave, get out of here. Like, don't even talk to me. By the way, it's got to go in the toaster, or nowadays maybe an air fryer.
Yeah. They say the air fryer is real good.
Yes, it is.
My mother, when Dave Portnoy came to Old Forge back in 2019, and he did the pizza reviews around the restaurant. So he's there. He's leaving. He gives us our score. He was great too. He was fantastic. He was good at my place. He was good at all the places. He was just so energetic. His publicity and his fame did a phenomenal thing to this day. Mm-hmm. I just had two people come in Saturday night. They're like, "Do you sell pizza by the cut?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We follow the Dave Portnoy app." He said, "The One Bite." He said, "So we're going all the places."
And we're trying the
not just my place. It was Saturday night or Friday night. They came in. They just got 2-3 cuts from each place, and then they left. And they were getting it to go. But about the microwave, real quick. My mother, when Dave was leaving, my mother said, "Now, you're taking this pizza, right?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "Now, when you take this home," she said, "you do not reheat this in the microwave." And he went, like, in a funny, good way. He was like, "Do you think I'm some kind of maniac?" He said, he goes, "Mr. Rinaldi, I'm the pizza guy. I know how to heat up pizza." She said, "Hey, listen, I'm just telling you, I'm just giving you advice. You have to put." He said, "I would never." He said, "You got to be insane to put it in the microwave."
Yeah. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But it's on the whole skit, and it's right at the end, and it was like a good 2 minutes towards the end, and it was just a good little thing between him and my mother.
Yeah.
And it stuck.
That's so funny.
It stood out when you said that.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. It's crazy just talking about like grandparents and all that. So it's so weird. Like I just realized now, as you were saying about the tablecloth with the plastic and all that. So it just made me think. So that stool right there, see that stool? Yeah. So there's actually I have another one in back in the other room. But when my grandparents passed away, like all of us grandkids, we all went to the house, and our my mom and our aunts and uncles, they were given just given this cleaning out the house and say, "Hey, well, what do you guys want? Take what you want, And those stools, that stool, and there's one other. We used to do so. I used to have the table that's over in Brian's studio over there. That actually used to be like up like this high, and so like these tables used to be like bar height, and that's how I started this. So before Brian's show, like this table in here, we were sitting on those,
and they're from your grandparents.
Those are from my grandparents.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we used to sit on those as kids. So my grandparents sat on them when their kids, like my mom and like my aunts and uncles, when like they were all growing up, they had like this little bar, and I still have the bar too. The bar's at my house. It's like literally like it's like this big, and it's one of those like old foldable bars, like where like the two sides kind of fold in. And there was actually, I think I have a few more stools at home, but those stools, there was like 4 or 6 of them, kind of all around this bar. And like I remember growing up as all of us cousins, we would all like sit on those stools. We would like throw blocks. Some of us behind the little bar would be like whipping blocks at each other and stuff. But those bar stools, like they were from my grandparents' house. And when I started this podcast, like four and a half years ago, for some reason I just brought those in, and like I just used those. I guess maybe because the table was high, right?
Yeah.
So I needed like a bar height, and I had those at my house.
That's nostalgia,
right?
Right.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, and you probably or anyone else probably wouldn't know this, but like, but you'll know exactly the feeling I'm talking about when I explain this. So when I pick that bar stool up, and if you kind of like go by, you get like a whiff of smell. It still smells like my grandparents' house.
Absolutely.
Right? You know what I'm talking about? Do you know,
absolutely.
It's like permanently like embedded in that. Like I even have like some blankets and stuff. Like like I have an old Penn State blanket from that like my grandmother used. And no matter how many times we wash it, Russ, it still smells like their house. Like how?
It's still,
I mean, it's incredible.
It has that history in it still.
It does.
Right.
It does.
It does.
It's so cool. So those stools, we used those, and then like my back, I'm getting old, so my back started hurting, and all the guests were like, get some chairs with backs, would you? But for like probably for the first, I don't know how long it was that I switched and finally got different chairs, lowered the table, I trimmed the legs, right? But those were probably used for like, I don't know, at least 150, if not 175 episodes of this show.
Wow,
how crazy is that?
Fantastic.
On those chairs, the same chairs that my grandparents used.
Are your grandparents alive?
They're not. No, no, it's okay. Yeah. They're both passed. But how crazy is that?
That's great. And I mean, like, see, like that's like a good history story. That's like that's like something that's like close to you, something that's near and dear to you.
Yeah, I'll never give them away.
Still have it here, right?
Yeah, still have it, and the quality is unbelievable. Right. Like the cushion, does that even look the slightest bit flat to you?
No,
not at all. Right?
No.
Like how crazy is that? Think that
it actually looks.
It almost looks new.
It doesn't look old at all.
Right. I mean, maybe the style of it, you can kind of tell like it's a little bit older.
Guess what, though? They took care of stuff back then.
They did. I mean, look at it.
Stuff was built better, too, though. I believe that.
Oh,
stuff
100%.
was constructed, manufactured, built better.
Oh, my God.
But
a stool nowadays won't even last I don't know, a couple of years.
You probably can't even get a wooden stool today.
Yeah, no.
It's all
that's 3 generations
weak
sat on
metal
that.
tin or something, right?
Yeah, junk. I got multiple of those things. They're freaking rock solid, man.
Yeah.
It's like they could survive anything.
And they took care of things back then.
Yeah. There's probably some blood on those. Some people might have gotten hit over the head with those. Who the hell knows? There's probably some rich history. I'm sure my mom, as she's watching this right now, she's probably laughing her ass off because, as when she was younger, hanging out around that little bar at my grandparents' house, like that's what they did. They gathered around this little bar, hanging out, drinking, partying, just hanging out, family stuff, holidays, just regular stuff. Everybody gathered around like this little bar. And like the TV was over there. I can still vividly picture all of it. Like around Christmas, we had a friend friend of the family who was a priest, and we would do Christmas Eve, and he would come do mass at the house. He would actually come do mass, and we would do mass at that bar. Like that was the altar
at the table.
The bar, Russ. I swear to God, Russ, forever. Every family picture on Christmas Eve with our whole family, all the aunts, the uncles, the cousins,
was at the bar.
Was at the bar. Yep, which was the altar. Father Mike is in the middle, and we got all the stools.
That's great.
How cool is that?
That's great.
And it's here. Like, I actually never even told that story. Anybody that has anything to do with this, my team, the show, I don't think anybody even knows that. I don't think I've ever shared that story. I don't think I've ever even told anyone that.
That's a great story.
How cool is that?
Right. That's talk about rich in history.
Yeah.
That's good.
I know.
Yeah.
And like and it's kind of cool too when you think about it. It's like the stories that were told sitting on those bar stools from my grandparents to my mom to my cousins, and then in here in the studio telling the stories that we're telling. Now, granted, we're not sitting on them right now, right? But, but the amount of stories that were told,
the discussion that took place because of them, and the discussion that took place with them just being involved over the years.
Yeah.
Whether it's back from your grandparents to today.
Yeah.
Lots.
It's crazy. I didn't even it just dawned on me right now that I'm like, as you're you're talking about, because it reminded me of my grandparents' house too. You got the tablecloth and
always.
And it's like the old cheesiest chintzy thing, right? And I can picture it, and it probably was there. I feel like it was there forever. You know what I mean? Like that tablecloth thing. Always.
That tablecloth. It looks like the plastic was there, and then the cloth itself was hand knitted.
Yeah.
It was it was stitched to be there.
Yeah.
Always.
It's so crazy.
Always.
Yeah, but I never shared a story, but I just thought of that, and I'm like, man.
That's a great story.
The history, man. The history behind that stuff. Wow. I was just talking about, like I said, who do we got?
It's my son.
All right, here we go.
Hey. You're on the podcast? I am on the podcast.
Welcome to the show.
Russ, say hi to Bill.
What's up, brother?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to say happy birthday.
Aw, thanks, son. Appreciate that. I love you. Just so you know, and you'll watch the podcast once it comes out in a couple weeks.
You better. You're grounded.
No, no, he loves them.
Yeah.
But I told Bill, I said, I have to keep my phone by me and put it on silent, or on vibrate. I said, I got to answer 2 calls. Number 1, if my son calls, because he's going to get up. He probably was up late with his friends last night, so he's going to call me. And I said around 2, 3 o'clock. I said, or if my mother calls, I said. So then we're waiting for you to call. He said, oh yeah. He said, when he calls, put him on. He said, we want to just hear it for a couple minutes. So I'm glad you called. You called perfect timing. We have a little bit more to go, but this is awesome.
All right, nice.
What are you doing? You getting up?
Yeah, I got up like an hour ago, but I didn't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, no, you're probably up late. That's good. Relax.
Shower, and then I'll do my shift today.
All right, we'll do what you have to do. When I get out of here, I'll call you on the way back home. I'm heading to work back. I'm heading back to work. I'll give you a call.
All right, I love you.
I love you. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you got a great dad there, brother.
I know I do.
You sure do. He's an awesome dude.
Thank you. I
Take care of him.
appreciate that.
All right.
It's my guy right there. All right, say bye to Bill.
See you, brother.
See you, man.
All right, bye, son. I love you. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
I love you too, Dad.
I love you. Bye, buddy.
I love it. Love
The
it.
best.
Oh my
It's
god.
my life.
That was great. It is, man. Like,
Saved my life.
did he? How?
Oof. I was, to get off topic of food, I was a pretty, before he was born, my ex-wife, she got pregnant in October of 2008. And about 2 months into that, I was always a drinker, but I was social, I was casual, I didn't drink a lot. When I drank a lot, but it wasn't like a lot.
Yeah.
But she got pregnant. I panicked. And I always tell this story when I talk to people about it. They're like, what do you mean? I said, I panicked. I said, I was working a lot. She was working the restaurant too a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She was a great worker too. And you want to talk about somebody for the restaurant business. She had the personality for it. She had the energy for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She had the whole vibe. So like we were good at it, but I panicked and I was like, she's pregnant, gonna have a boy, and I was super excited. I was so happy to like have a child, and not to say it this way, boy or girl, as long as they're born.
Yeah,
healthy.
but you probably wanted.
But I knew
of course.
But I knew I had a boy coming.
Yeah.
So it was
yeah.
like
I was the same way. I felt the same way.
So it was
Because
exciting.
our first was a boy.
Right. But we always said, boy or girl, as long as they're born.
As long as they're healthy,
That's
that's all that
important
matters.
thing. Then when I found it was a boy, I was like, okay.
Hell yeah, yeah.
Born healthy, number one.
Yep.
And a boy. So, long story short, not to keep it short, but to explain it too. But I panicked and I was like, am I going to be able to like do this? Now I was 30 years old, and I'm always working. She's always working. She's pregnant. We're going to have enough money. We're going to build this. Well, I took a bad turn and I like my mind got the best of me. Well, I started drinking more. I eventually started using drugs. And for about 3 years, from early 2009, he was born in July of 2009, but early 2009, about January, is when I started. And I went all the way until January of 2010. So about almost 3 years, two and a half years. And then I got sober in January 17, 2011. And I got sober for two reasons. Number one, I got sober for myself, and I got sober for my son. And I explained this to Brian a little bit when we did his. And I didn't get sober for myself to be selfish. I got sober for myself because if I wanted to be there for him in a good way, I had to make sure I was here for myself first in a good way. Because if I can't be good for myself, I can't be good for anybody. And I wanted to be good for us both. Me first, so I'm able to be there for him. But I'll tell you, over the years, between my son, a lot of prayer, a lot of faith, a lot of God, I've also had a lot of help through people, professional people, I never went into treatment, but I did a lot of outpatient treatment. I had a lot of friends who were in charge of Clearbrook, friends who were in charge of the Scranton Counseling Center. So I had a lot of mentorship from them.
That's great.
But my son, over these years, and through it now, it's 13 years. Through it, 13 and a half. Through it now, whenever I have a hard time, whenever I have confusion, anger,
Anxiety.
upset,
Yeah.
tons. I think about my kid, and I know that every day it's a battle, but I have to be there for him the next day. So that night before bed, I always tell myself this, and a lot of people say, how do you do it? How do you stay sober so long? And I said, true like what I just explained with my son. I always said, the key to it was always for me, one day at a time. I said, I know tonight I'm not going to drink or take a drug. If I wake up tomorrow, and I hope I do, I'll take that day on tomorrow. But today, I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging. And I told myself that the last night I drank and drugged was January 16, 2011. And I got up the next day and I was like, I'm quitting, that's it. I'm done with this. I can't do it no more. I don't want to do it no more. I don't want to be like this. I don't want him to have a father like this. And I just can't live like this anymore. And I told myself that night, and that's 13 years and 6 months earlier.
Good for you, man.
But that kid, that voice, that time, his text messages to me over these years, and he knows my story too. As he got older, I told him. I didn't tell him when he was younger.
Yeah.
But he knows about it. He knows I don't drink. He knows why I don't drink. He knows the problems, that I've had with it. I've explained it to him to a point. You know what I mean? As he got older, and as he gets older, I could give him some more information. When he's more of an adult, more of a man.
And he can understand it more. Yep.
But for a young kid, he's extremely smart. I told you, extremely compassionate, caring, and I could see that. He could understand a lot of it now at a young age. Mm-hmm. But as he gets older, like you said, adulthood, manhood, he'll understand it more.
Yeah.
But that's my guy right there, man.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
I actually myself, so I don't know if you know, but I had that AFib heart incident.
I do.
I quit drinking. I was drinking. I had my last drink was the night that my heart went into AFib.
Really?
March 31st.
Well, I'm very glad that you're still here.
Yeah.
I remember I followed it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I didn't meet you until I met you that day here when I did the podcast with Brian. Mm-hmm. And then you sent me the friend request, or I sent you it, and then I followed you on social media. Yeah. And I remember I saw it on social media, and I was devastated for you. I was like, wow. Yeah. I mean,
out of nowhere,
And you're a young guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Young guy.
Yeah. And at the time, our daughter, was born February 5th. So that was, our daughter was only 2 months old. The boy was that scary.
Right.
That was scary.
I
can't really attribute it really. I can't really put a finger on it where, and the doctors can't really determine. It is what it is. We can't determine exactly where it came from. I think it was a combination of a lot of things. But what I learned about AFib is alcohol is actually the number one contributor.
Really?
Did you know that?
I didn't.
Neither did I. I didn't know that until, that day.
Wow.
And that was it for me, man. That was it.
Good for you.
I don't think I'm ever going back. At first, I was kind of like, I'll try. I'm gonna try. I'm curious. I'm gonna not drink. At first, of course, I'm shocked. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta really refocus my life, which I did in a million and one different ways.
Right.
Right. But just as you said, man, the only thing that mattered and the only thing I thought about was my kids. Right. And of course, my wife.
Right. Sure.
But I had to be there for them, and whatever I had to do, I had to do. So that was it for me, man. And I don't think I'm gonna go back.
Like I said, everybody handles it differently. I know I handle it different than this guy.
Yeah.
He handles it differently than that girl. However everyone does their own thing.
Yep.
The important thing is, I always say, for anybody who's trying to get sober, for anyone who wants to get sober, you do have to do it. Some people just have to do it their own way.
Right.
You can't.
Whatever way that is.
Whatever way that is. Yep. It's different for everybody.
Sure.
You can't just open up the book
and be like, okay, here's step one. Right. Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah.
I'm 13 and a half years sober. There's 12 steps in the program. I completed 4. That's all I did so far. I did 4. I actually
didn't do any.
Well, I'm saying, so everyone's, you can't get, I've had people say this.
Yeah.
You can't get sober unless you do all 12 steps. And I said to them, did you do all 12? They said, I did. I said, well, maybe you couldn't get sober without doing all 12. But guess what?
It doesn't mean I can't. Yeah.
Right. I'm very glad you're sober. I'm glad you're alive.
Yep.
I'm glad you're healthy. Whether they're friends of mine, I don't know. If you're an enemy of mine, if you're healthy and you're doing good and you're here for yourself and your family and your kids, I don't even have to like you. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here because your family, I might not, but your family needs you. I'm glad you're here.
It's crazy. Like when that happened to you, did you take a whole new outlook on life after that?
Well, the first couple years for me, I was like when I got sober, my first 2 years, I was still in a
Like a transition.
I was in a natural high still. Like I was 6 weeks sober. When I quit drinking, when I quit drinking and drugging, I was 113 pounds. I was frail, I was brittle.
Holy shit, 113
I
pounds?
was 113 pounds.
I can't even imagine that.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Bro.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you right now. I'm like, how the hell were you 113 pounds?
I was 100. Yeah. The day I joined the gym, there was a gym opened up in Old Forge called Anytime Fitness right across the street from the restaurant.
Yep.
And I talked to a lot of people in the program for those couple of weeks. And one guy said to me, have you ever worked out before? I said, the last time I worked out was in football. I was 17 years old. I was a junior, senior in high school. That was 13 years ago.
Yeah.
He said, do you read? Do you meditate? Church meetings. I said, yeah. I said, I don't meditate. I said, I read a little bit. I said, church, I would love to start going to. Meetings, obviously, I was going to a bunch a week. He said, try the gym. He said, the gym's a good outlet. He said, it might not work for you. Maybe it will. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I got in the gym March 6th, 2011. I didn't leave it. I've been in there ever since. And that, for me, is a great outlet. It's a great release. It's good for stress. It's good for anxiety. Mm-hmm. It's good. I mean, obviously, it's good to get yourself in shape too.
Yeah. Of course.
You get your body in shape. You get your heart in shape. You get your organs.
And just like you said, you had to get yourself. You had to become the best version of Russ.
Right.
To be able to be the best version for your son,
right.
Your family, everybody. You have to. It's so true. Like when you said that before, like that, for me, like really hit home too, because whether it's sobriety or not, let's just put that aside. It could be anything, right? Just life in general. Sure. Like you. In order, and people think it might be like, and you said it's not a selfish thing. Mm-mm. It's in order for you to be the best version, you need to help yourself first, because if you can't help yourself, you're not going to be able to help somebody else. You need to help yourself first. And once you're good, everything's good.
Right. That's how I based the beginning of my sobriety on. I based it off some advice from other people, but also there was some advice. Well, you have to do this. But I took a little from this one.
Yeah, and pieced together what worked for you.
I didn't listen to that one. I did listen to this one, but I knew and felt once I got my information together, I knew that I had to do it for me, because that's always been my statement for 13 years and 6 months. I have to get right for me, or I can never be right for anybody else.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
Well,
I can't.
Yeah. No, neither. And I agree.
Right.
I would 100% agree with you.
And I would not say that about you or anybody else. I just know in general, for me, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. That's how it's always worked so far. That's what I've been doing. I'm not going to change it.
Nope.
Because it's working, and it's working good.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, sober or not, I get in bad moods. I get upset.
Of course.
I break things. I smash them. I'm not proud of that. But, I still got my temper. Mm-hmm. But these days, I just handle it.
Yeah, but you're not going back to the drinking and the drugs. No. Because that's probably what you would have done.
I'm not tonight.
Exactly.
I'm not tonight.
Yeah.
That was my other big key. Mm-hmm. That I'm not doing it tonight. I know. And then you have people saying, "Oh, stop! Don't talk like that. You'll be sober tomorrow." I said, I'm only worried about tonight. Mm-hmm. I just want to get
one day
through
at a time.
sober. Because guess what? There's some nights still to this day. 13 years, 6 months. There's still days. I'm like, you got that guy upstairs.
Yeah, you're like,
And you're like, you know what? Like, maybe I could have one. They're always up there.
Yeah.
When I first got sober, for my year anniversary, it's too long. I can't read it. It takes about 20 minutes. I'll send it to you, though.
Yeah, do it.
I wrote myself a nice poem.
I'd love to read it.
I post it on my Facebook page every year on my anniversary date. And it starts out with the history of, my addiction. It starts out with, when I was a kid. It starts out with, as I got older. And then it starts out with from those bad years to the good to when I stopped. Mm-hmm. And it's like a story too.
Yeah.
But it's about 20 minutes long. But it's really good. And I post it every year, like I said, on my anniversary date. And, it reaches a lot of people, and I don't do it to reach people for my sake. I've had a lot of people reach out to me after the fact of it, looking for advice, and I would always, again, just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for anybody, but I'll always give them my best advice.
Yep.
If they want to use it, try it.
Take a part of it.
I go for coffee with them. I meet them. I take them to a meeting. I'll go over to their house. I'll call on the phone, come over to the restaurant, come down tonight and meet you at the gym. There's been years and multitudes of people
Yeah.
throughout this 13 and a half years that like I've come in contact with, who I've been able to help, but in the same way, they helped me back.
That's cool.
They helped me back because even if you're helping somebody,
It helps you.
It helps you.
It does.
It helps you.
It does, man.
Like if I'm in the gym and I have a guy and I don't meet, I met one of my best friends to this day in the gym. I didn't even know him. He's from a different state.
Wow.
He just happened to meet him. He ended up
Wow.
being such a great guy. To this day, we're still good friends. We talk a lot. I see him, but to this day, I didn't know the guy. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he said, I was in jail. He said, I'm back in the area. I'm joining the gym. And we started talking. And that was like 9 years ago.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's doing great still. He's doing
That's
great.
awesome.
And the story he told me, he came from a pretty bad past, and he had like me, he had a bad addiction, he had a bad story, and he's a great kid. He's younger than me, but I'm a comic kid. He's 40, but he's a great guy. You know what I mean? And like I'm saying, like me sitting there with him in that gym that night talking when I first met him, like I walked out of there and I felt good because of him. Like he made, I didn't make myself feel good. He made me feel good.
Yeah. And those are the people you need around you, man.
Right. Yeah. You definitely need a good
Just in
core.
general.
Right. I mean, it doesn't have to be sobriety.
Sure.
I mean, sobriety when you have a good core is great, but you need a good core in general.
You do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again,
people that give you energy. You need people. You need, like you said, like he gives you good energy.
Good energy.
Like if you're hanging with whomever and they're not giving you good energy and lifting you up, then why are you around them?
Right. I agree 100%. Like for instance, this is the first day me and you really met.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying this 'cause I'm sitting here because I'm not like that. I'm an honest guy. Like I could sit with you after this or meet you tomorrow and talk to you. And number one, I'm an open and honest guy anyways. My life's an open book. A lot of people know a lot about me. And I've told them because I want them to know.
Yeah.
I could sit down with you and I just met you. And it goes back to that thing, I was saying like Italians, but just people in general, good people. You could get good energy.
You know.
I could sit with you and it could be like I could have a conversation with you tomorrow for 3 hours. And it's like I knew you since we were like 15.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
I felt that from afar.
Right. You get good connection.
You do.
Get good energy with certain people.
You just know.
Right.
You do. It's a gut feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good. And like it's just there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's all about, man, surround yourself with those type of people and you can conquer anything.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need good friends, good core, good family, good stuff. I mean, if you have that, I mean, life is tough and it throws a lot of crap at us, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But you could get yourself through it. And
Absolutely.
you could get them through it, they could get you through it, get through it together.
Hell yeah. So when I come up to the restaurant, what am I eating? What am I having?
Tell me what you like. I could recommend lots of, but what do you like? Yeah. Chicken, veal, seafood? What do you like?
I mean, I'm a big seafood fra diavolo guy.
Seafood fra diavolo is delicious. We have we have a seafood bianco. It's the same version, but it's a white sauce.
Okay.
It's this pasta, but as a white cream sauce instead of fra diavolo. But the fra diavolo is great. Mm-hmm. You a chicken guy, veal guy?
Yeah. I mean, I'll eat any.
Not to say it this way.
Like a chicken parm? Do you have a good chicken parm? I love a good chicken parm.
Chicken parm's really good.
Yeah.
I have a good chicken franchise. That's really good if you like the chicken franchise.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I don't want to say it this way, and I'm not trying to up-talk my food. Food in general in 04 is just fantastic. Food in our area is fantastic.
It is.
A lot of people, that's what a lot of people do when you get to talk about food. And I'm from 04. Me and my family own a restaurant. A lot of our friends, obviously, in town own restaurants. Mm-hmm. So you want to compliment everybody, not because you want to, but because it is the truth. They do have good food.
Yeah,
they are good.
And I know
families.
you wouldn't be saying that if their food was shit.
Right? No, like they're good families. They're hard workers. Mm-hmm. They have a good product. But just in this area in general, a lot of people don't realize it. And you go on Facebook and people are fighting like, 04's pizza sucks and this pizza's the best and this guy's food sucks and that guy's food this place. Not just 04, just in the area.
In general, yeah.
But it's all a matter of opinion, number one, because some people might not like this and some people do.
Yeah.
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's the worst.
Right, yeah. Can't please everyone.
I've ate places where it was good. I didn't like it. But, I mean, I enjoyed it to the point where, like, I'm not going to go on social media and destroy somebody about it.
Right, yeah, you just move on.
Right, like okay, I ate it. It filled me up. It was all right. And I'm good with it. Mm-hmm. But just this area in general has great food.
Yeah.
And if more people would you know, like you said, not come together, because you're never going to get people to agree on everything.
Sure.
Especially the social media when you're fighting back and forth with each other. But the area in general has good food.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not to uptalk my food to get back to it, but I mean, like, everything we make is good. Everything we make is, you know, I mean, a lot of the old recipes, some from the book, just a lot of old recipes, some from my family. I got guys who cook for me who do some of their own stuff too, and we let them. I mean, I got guys who cook for me. They're fantastic, and they'll want to do their own specials. They want to do this. I mean, they'll make it. We try it. We taste it, and it's good. I'm like, yeah, sure, do it. Like my one guy's texting me yesterday, like, I'm going to put the special menu together, he said, for this week. Do you want to do this? You want to do that? And I said, what do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do. I'll order it. He's like, all right. So then he gets the menu together. He sends it to me. I order the food, but I told him, you pick the dishes.
Yeah, that's
You know
cool.
what I mean?
Yeah, that's
pick
awesome.
them. I mean,
Yeah.
he wants to cook them. He likes to cook them. My other guy last week, he said, hey, why don't you get some Scott? He's been there with us since 2001. He started out as a dishwasher.
Wow.
He's a cook. He's a chef, but he's been a chef now for years. But he started out when he was 14 years old. He's a great kid.
That's incredible.
Yeah, great kid. He's 35, 36 right now. So he says to me last week, him, the other guy, like, let's change the special up this week. Why don't you get this, and I'll do this. I said, you tell me what you want to get. I'll get it. You cook it. I mean, you guys, because there's certain things that people cook better than other people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, if you cook it, or if you want to cook it, I'll put on the menu. I'll order you this, and we're going to sell it. People are going to enjoy it because you cooked it. Pick it, whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
I love that.
It's great.
Yeah. I got to get up. I got to get up there.
Yeah, come up whenever
Yeah.
you're ready. You call
Yeah.
me.
I know. I will. I for sure will. Well, me and my wife, we'll come up. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
bring the kids. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. But we're coming.
You could bring the kids. We're very.
We sometimes
kid-friendly.
need
It's
we need a
casual.
day away.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. Every now
Yeah.
and then you need a little quiet, a little
Yep.
private time, just
Yeah.
you and the wife.
Yep.
That's always that's always a much needed
Yeah.
remedy.
For sure. For sure. For parenthood.
Right,
You know?
for parent and,
Yeah.
and for
Sanity.
yourself a little sanity.
Yeah. We all need to keep our sanity, right?
Yeah, you definitely need a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, man, this was awesome. I'm glad
was great.
I'm glad
Me too.
I'm glad we finally got this together, and love the book by your dad.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, and thank you for sharing that story. You know, thank you for sharing your sobriety story.
Oh,
and talking,
anytime.
that whole thing, because I think that's so important for people to learn. You know, putting yourself in a vulnerable position. That's where I think you grow the most as a person, and other people can learn so much from you. And I think it's very helpful. You know, I always applaud everybody that comes on here, you know, and is able to put themselves in a vulnerable position, because not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people have what it takes to be in a seat like this in a public, I'll call it a public,
Right.
you know, forum, whatever you want to call it, and say like, this is where I was, but now I'm good, you know. And it's tough, and obviously it's a lot easier probably for you to talk about nowadays, and you enjoy helping people, which is also awesome. But man, I like I said, I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. The more I tell that story, the stronger I become. You know what I mean?
I love that, yeah.
Because the more I'm able to be open and honest about that, that's
It continues to strengthen that bond.
That keeps you strong.
It does.
And if you go, and I'll send it to you,
Yeah, please do.
I have a little bit in that story where if nobody else out there, this is just for me, if I am not an open and honest person, that's when the bad creeps back in, and that's when that gets power. So to take the power away from that, I tell my story. And again, I don't tell my story to uptalk myself. That's not what I tell. I tell my story because my story, by me being open, by me being honest, because that's the kind of person I am. But by me doing that, that keeps me stronger in my sobriety, and that keeps me more healthy. So I have no problem talking about that. I enjoy it. I like it. When I first started talking about, you probably heard, I get a little choked up. I mean, I'm always going to get a little choked up.
Me
about
too. I
it.
mean, I did too when I was talking about.
And then when I talk about my son, I definitely get a little choked up.
Yeah.
But that choking up, that's not out of uncomfortable.
No.
But I'm very comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
That getting choked up, that's passion.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it
That's
is.
like like, you know, you have all that rushes through you.
Yeah, I got the
And
chills again.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of bad rushing through when you're telling that. It's a lot of good. You know what I mean? It's a lot of great, you know. So I like to, it's a rush that overtakes you. So, you know, you get that like little bit of like clearing in the throat. You get a little choked up.
Yeah.
But it'll never stop me. I mean, that's what I said. That's why I like talking about it, because it helps to keep me strong.
Absolutely. I agree, man. I agree. So like I said, like and same thing with me. That's why like I shared a little bit of mine too,
Right.
because I think it's so powerful, man. Like it's so powerful. It's I mean, you know, like I said, it's life-changing, completely life-changing. And you never know who's listening, who's watching. And there could be something that you said today, there could be something that I said today that somebody's going to really resonate with.
Right.
And somebody might change their life around because of what you or I said. And like that's,
Or they might reach out to one of us.
Yeah,
they
and
might
please
wanna
do.
talk. Right.
And please do.
I tell people all the time, you know, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm big social media. I mean, you know, local.
Yep.
I post my stuff. When I post that story, I always tell people, you know, reach out to me whenever you want. And a lot do. You know, you
Yeah.
get a lot of private messages.
Yeah. Yep.
Or you get a lot of phone calls.
yeah, like, hey, thanks for sharing that, you know.
I get people who stop down. They ask for some advice. You know, they start to tell their story a little bit to me privately. You know, so like I said, like any little bit helps. And again, when you get somebody like that who you're helping, to me, it helps me too.
Right.
You know, you keep helping each other.
It's that energy. It's that
it
energy.
bounces back and forth.
It does.
It does.
You need it.
Oh, I thrive off of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's so rich in the positivity of, you know, you maybe helped them, they helped you, and you know, and then like I said, that one guy I met, and I met a lot of people like that over the years, but that one guy I met, we got a great friendship because of it. Just because of just an odd off night, 12:30 at night in the gym. Guy from out of state stopped in there. I'm in there. We just started talking. We were in there for 4 hours. We didn't even work out. We worked out for 20 minutes, and then we were talking for 4 hours.
Wow.
But like I'm saying,
that's awesome.
that type of you know
Yeah.
atmosphere, that type of conversation took place, and it was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
was
Love to
good.
hear it. Well, brother, this was awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Listen, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy coming on. I enjoyed when I was with Brian.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed this. This was
Yeah.
good.
Well, thanks for sharing your birthday with me, man.
Oh yeah, anytime. Well, I told you that day. I said, yeah, let's do it on my birthday.
Yeah. I told you I would get you a cake. The next best thing was some cupcakes. So
I love cupcakes.
so I'll send you out with like the Italians do. Like I got you some.
You got me some food
to go.
Just so you know, I might be in the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, but I go home late at night, and I'll tell you, sweets is my it's my
I know.
weakness.
Yeah.
I love sweets.
Yeah.
Sweets, milk, anything,
Yeah.
anything, cookies, donuts, chocolate, peanut butter.
Oof. Yeah.
Some's good for you, some's bad. But
Yeah, but
you
hey,
gotta
balance.
Right, you gotta
and,
balance a little bit.
Yeah, and in small doses.
right.
Yeah.
Moderation.
That's what I was. That's the word, I'm glad, that was the word I was looking for. I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah.
Most things in moderation are okay.
That's
for
right.
you.
That's what they say. So we'll follow that.
Yeah, we'll follow that. I mean, someone said that before us a long time ago. It's a wise man. We'll listen to him.
Hey, they're not wrong.
Right.
All right, Russ Rinaldi on the Stacks in the MPP studio. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.